We can't say the future without AI. I mean, there's no way around it. 50% of workers now believe AI is going to improve their experience. When I come into the meeting room, I need a way to incorporate my AI with what's going on in the meeting. It's almost a bring your own AI type of a concept. Most of what we do in our day-to-day is going to change significantly.
Hear the latest AV trends and predictions in this episode of Crestron's Smarter Spaces podcast on your preferred podcast platform.
When it comes down to it, forget the boardroom, forget that stuff. But I'm just talking about like on a production side, like you guys were mentioning. This device right here, this is what we're viewing it on.
When we have clients who have somebody who's super excited about, oh, we need 4K. I'm like, yeah, you don't though, because what you're capturing is ending up on student phones.
Now, if you're playing the movie on a telephone, you will never in a trillion years experience the film. You'll think you have experienced it, but you'll be cheated.
Bose moves to expand more into Pro AV, the trends for IT and AV admins, and the biggest users of AV over IP. All that and more next on AV Week. This is AV Week, episode 662, recorded Friday, April 26th, 2024. Standard AV over IP. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of the biggest audiovisual news and IT news that we can gather. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss that news and information, first and foremost, from the great country of Canada and the area of Vancouver, Providences, right? Bren Walker from Kierkegaard. Welcome, ma'am.
Hello, everybody, and happy belated Earth Day.
Yes, indeed. Also with us is my buddy and pal and fellow Illinoisan, Mr. Jeremy Caldera from Pearl Technology.
Greetings all.
And last but not least, Todd Musgrave. He is from Netgear, brand new. So you guys be nice to him. How are you, sir?
Good.
Good deal. We're going to cover a couple things at the very end. InfoComm's coming up June 12th to the 14th. Mitchell is already working his fingers to the bone, producing some really great previews. But we will also be there as well. We got a tweet up that we're going to put out probably about a week or two. But the 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock on the 12th at the Las Vegas Convention Center is where you will find us then. First story, talking about AV over IP. Grace Community Church, a Southern California megachurch, has significantly expanded audiovisual capabilities by deploying a large Dante-based network AV system across its multi-building campus. The church has integrated over 150 Dante endpoints since 2014, enabling quote-unquote seamless audio routing and management. However, the church recently used Dante AV technology to distribute 4K video and audio for a feature documentary premiere and other events such as the Shepherds Conference and their bilingual communion services. Jeremy, I want to start with you on this. When you're looking at AV over IP, what are the biggest installations? What's the biggest group of people that you are deploying these for? Whether that's higher education, it's corporate, it's churches like this one.
Yes,
all of them.
Okay. No, so it's interesting because I mean my biggest vertical market is corporate, so that's obviously where I'm seeing it the most. But it's everything. Even my smallest of systems is now video over IP. There's not a system I put in or that I can think of that's outside of a all-in-one bar solution. All right, outside of that, everything's got a Netgear switch. Todd, you'll love that, right? We're putting those into everything, and some kind of endpoint, encoder, decoder, all in one, whatever. It's there. So we're pretty much using that, even if it's as simple as not encoding source to display, but encoding cameras to touch panel previews and streaming video. It doesn't matter what it is, it's there, but it's corporate. But we're also seeing it house of worship. We're seeing it performing arts. We're seeing it just about everywhere you can imagine, because really it's becoming the predominant and easiest way to transport audio and video.
Well, that was going to be my follow-up question to you, is that you said even the smallest system, has that migrated to where this is the default now, to where even 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, it was the opposite where, it's one or two HDMI inputs, no big deal. We'll put in a small switch.
It was all HD base T. It was all everything else, right? It was all matrix routing and matrix switching and all that jazz. And I'm hard pressed to put that in anymore. It's not really that much cost savings. It used to be that video over IP was my default for large scale solutions, because when you start adding up endpoints and matrices and cards and all this other stuff, and you do that comparison, it was there. But the cost of the endpoints for AV over IP have come down. So now it's maybe a little bit more money than your traditional, solution, but it's not enough that I think it matters. So I'm going to lead with that every time.
All right. Bren, same kind of question. Bren spends a lot of time, designing and putting these things together, whether that's higher education or, theater spaces. What are you seeing this?
It's same for us. We're not even thinking about anything but that. It's a standard now for higher ed, for performing arts, for large halls, for everything. It's arrived. It's here. Now, the one thing I will say from reading that story, there are still people who want their SDI, right?
Yeah.
So you have blending in terms of how systems work, and they mentioned that in that story as well. And I'll say that also. I think that all Dante, for all of it, there are professional audio engineers who are not interested in systems that are running Dante. They want AVB, right? So I think that there's a segmentation of who will be all Dante all the time and who won't be.
All right, Todd, both from a networking standpoint as well as you being an AV professional standpoint, where are you seeing some of these areas that AV over IP is being leveraged?
Well, I think what you mentioned, house of worship, corporate, we see a lot more in courtroom capture and streaming. What's so unique about the AV over IP workflow now is that you can mix in SDI workflows, HDMI. You can mix in different codecs over IP. I know the Panasonic Kero system, for instance, has an ability to you kind of bring in all kinds of sources and produce them together. I have a broadcast background, so I did come from SDI that was HD SDI, 3G SDI, now 12G SDI. Challenges, obviously, running cable length when you're using 12G SDI, as well as other challenges. I mean, you can't argue with the convenience of one cat cable, and that would include PoE, control, audio, video, all over one cat cable. I mean, that the convenience there is, and the scalability is really incredible. But we see corporate clients building small studios, right? And for corporate communication, the likes of like LinkedIn or Google or Facebook or these guys are building small studios across the world, right? And they're contributing from all these different locations. We support all kinds of codecs. We support Dante, NDI, now 2110. So SMPTE 2110 is a broadcast standard, but to be able to time sync all the sources globally, likewise to put content into the cloud and produce it in different flavors, like you saw with the Super Bowl, right? There was two production flavors going on. One on with SquarePants in Bikini Bottom.
One was Nickelodeon,
right?
And it was SpongeBob SquarePants and all the Nickelodeon folks.
Yeah, and so you can produce content from the cloud and make it for different audiences. So really, I think the advantages of AV over IP is it's really overcome. And people still like SDI. Some people still like to plug in an HDMI cable, right? But really, it's hard to argue with the convenience of AV over IP. The price is coming down quite a bit. In the 2110 space, even the price is coming down. So the barrier to get into those technologies has been reduced greatly.
It's interesting because even like I was saying about my smaller corporate clients, I'm doing a lot of conference rooms now. There's not a single analog connection. The only digital connection outside of a Cat6 cable is the HDMI cable and maybe the USB cable that's bridging into whatever laptop is connected. Speakers are PoE speakers, microphones are PoE, cameras are PoE, video switching and encoding and decoding, control, touch panels. Literally everything is on a Cat6 cable.
LED walls, whether that's in corporate or even with XR now, right? With extended reality, not having to be on site, having those LED walls create the entire background, right, in broadcast space. But it was for corporate, for house of worship, like I mentioned, courtroom applications. It just producing content. And as you know, corporate clients have to do it as well as broadcast studios, right? So these technologies are merging to a large degree. You have broadcast guys using Pro AV tools. You have Pro AV guys using broadcast tools. So it's these are really merging to a large degree.
So next story here comes to us. Bose is doing something interesting. Bose Professional. And for a second here, Bose Professional has recently split from Bose Consumer, right? Bose Professional was recently acquired by the private equity firm Transom Capital. Bose Professional has announced a major new expansion in their U.S. presence with a hybrid sales model, website, the whole shebang, including experience centers, a number of experience centers, not only here in the States, but also globally. The company has retained its core teams and expanded operations over the last year, adding new independent sales firm and in-house sales managers and engineers to provide enhanced regional focus and customer support. They've also added some pretty high-powered AV talent over the last year. The one that comes to mind is Jim Shantz, who did come from Shure, but now Jim is over at Bose Professional now. Todd, from your standpoint, Bose has had a tenuous relationship to the Pro AV industry, and that is the nicest way I can say that. There are moments in time where they are doing incredible things. And there are moments in time where people just think of Bose as the tiny little radio from the 1980s and 1990s. So where does Bose fit in this new Pro AV space?
We work with quite a lot of audio companies. We build profiles and we engage with them, and it either works plug and play, or we build a profile or something to make sure that there's Brent again. To make sure that we're compatible and interop with all of these. But where are they in the AV space? It's not so unlike Netgear, really, because Netgear sells, Wi-Fi access points and other things at the consumer level, at the Pro AV level, and then at the broadcast and Pro AV space as far as managed switches go. And that's kind of the division I work in. But you can't really ignore the AV industry. It's such a huge industry, but it's just a little bit different than consumer stuff you might buy, at Best Buy or some of the other retail or online outlets. So, I think you can't ignore either one, and you have to probably have dual strategies for each industry because they are serviced differently, and the support is much different. We have a Pro AV design team specifically with SEs, working with people onboarding switches, troubleshooting and other things. So that looks quite different than our Wi-Fi design team, which is mostly consumer based.
Caldera, as an integrator, as somebody who, you're the one who's putting these things in, where does Bose Professional fit into the current Pro AV space?
I haven't done a lot with Bose in recent years. As a matter of fact, when you said that they broke apart, I always thought they were two separate entities anyways, as most companies are, consumer, professional, they have those divisions. And I know that Bose Pro was always there. There was a time 10, 15 years ago, I actually did a lot of Bose. But there was, like you said, there was a time, it was a lot of great stuff, and then it kind of went away. And honestly, as an integrator, there's only so many speaker brands I can support and carry anyways, but I'm interested to see where it goes. I'm interested because I know Jim Shantz very well, that I want to see what he can do there. Yeah. I'm always open to what's there and what the changes are. They are a brand name. They are a great name. They have a standing behind them and a reputation behind them. I would just like to see the professional reputation, get that much better than the ups and downs and flows that you were talking about. So I'm intrigued. The rep firm I'm very close with, it's our rep here in the Midwest in the United States. And, I've been talking to them, so we'll see what happens there, but it's going to be interesting to see what the product offering is going to be.
Can I just say one thing about that?
Yes.
Private equity.
And she right there just filled up another 10 minutes just in those two words.
That's the after show, Tim.
that is the after show. All right.
Get ready for all sorts of things that don't make sense to us.
final story actually is one from our friends over at Tech Decisions, My Tech Decisions. They wrote an article about the top AV and IT trends for 2024. The article looked at integration of AV and IT. As you know, IT managers and AV managers, they're increasing their expertise, right, and their education. And several folks are getting CTS and CTSDs. Tim Van Wart from Rutgers this week, if you're familiar with him on the social media, he just got another CTS certification. So this group of folks, Jeremy's customers, right, but the end users, the in-house integrators, they are increasing their expertise and their knowledge base. Some of the areas that the article goes into talk about are software-defined solutions versus hardware, right? You've got 8K solutions, which that one surprised me, and I'll give you my 2 cents on that in a second. And obviously, AV companies embracing IT protocols. Caldera, with when you're looking at this article, what are some of the trends that we are seeing in corporate and higher ed that either My Tech Decisions missed or they absolutely got right?
There's a comedy factor to a couple parts of this where I read the AV integrators embrace the IT protocols and think to myself, didn't that happen already like a long time ago? Why are we still talking about this? But that aside, some of these things where it's coming down the pipeline is I'm actually interested in your take on 8K and where that's going to go. I want to see what's going to happen with that as well. We've actually seen some call for that, but it's been in super high resolution, medical simulation, like that kind of stuff. Not so much in the corporate space. Software defined versus hardware limitations. I mean, that's just common sense. That's where everything's going to be going. So I think there's some great stuff here in this article. It's just interesting. Everybody tries to make these predictions of where things are going, what they're going to be, what we're going to see, how things are going to change throughout the year. And usually most people are spot on. I think here that we're going to see a lot, everybody's been talking about managed services and security operations centers and that kind of thing for a long time too. Yep. I think we have yet to see that successfully implemented in the masses of companies like us. We even have challenges trying to figure it out. And I have a whole nother division of my company that specializes just in that. And we're still trying to battle figuring that out for the AV side of the house. So, dashboards are important. The platforms are important. Software is important. So I think it's a great article, but we need to get off this whole emergence of AV and IT thing because that's starting to drive me crazy.
Convergence, Caldera. Convergence.
Yeah. This is like talking about the analog sunset to me.
Bren, the My Tech Decisions article, talking about the different trends. What are you seeing in this, whether it's the article itself, what they got right, what they got wrong, or maybe something that they may have missed completely?
Well, I'm just going to say what I think about that article, which is very self-serving in terms of the trends identified and what they offer, which, that's the world we live in. We live in the world of paid content. Most of what I read there I wouldn't even consider it a trend. Some of it's just, this is where we are. Like, this isn't, we're not going to go back from that. The thing that I think could be really interesting when we talk about the nexus of AV and IT is that AV people are largely earning lower salaries than IT people, just kind of across the board. And I think that what AI may do is equip some AV people to take away parts of the IT job if they really think about it and start to move in that direction. And if organizations start to see that at that lower salary, they can get some of what they were getting from IT staff, like we could see a shift there. And that trend of the separation between AV and IT salaries might close because of it, or it could at least affect it. That's one of the trends. But, what I read in that article, like this converging thing and all, like where all that stuff, dashboards, people using data, like everybody's there. The interesting thing from the Grace story about their AV over IP network was the very comment at the end about they don't have time for staff to learn new systems. This is the issue that we will continue to have as we have more software platforms taking the place of hardware solutions. People are like, I don't have time to get trained on that. If I get trained on it, now I've got a certain amount of ongoing training I have to do. Then there's the issue of licenses, and all of a sudden something that was licensed to me for $200 a year is now going to be a $2,000 a year license because they got bought by private equity. I mean, you know, it introduces a whole other set of things for people when that software shift. I still think it's a good shift, love it, but it does introduce new things. And the sort of last thing I'll say is the here's another thing I have to pay every month burnout. And people will get, I know in my organization, it's like any new thing we add, we have to ask ourselves, do we really want to increase our monthly nut by that? And do we want to invest in people getting trained on it? And do we believe enough in what they're doing that we can commit to their platform for the long term? Because once you've invested those things, you're on that platform.
Yeah. Something we might tackle after the show is what Brent said there about training new people. And house of worship, theaters, and schools. Those are three areas. Those are three businesses and institutions that have, in my opinion, the hardest time with that, because churches and schools, you got either volunteers, you got students, right? Theaters, you get a 50-50 shot on whether or not they are full-time people or whether they're students who show up, who hang around for a semester or 2 semesters or 3, but these are not long-term. These are not long-term careers. Todd, you'll have the last word on this, on the trends and what do you see from your vantage point?
I work specifically in AV over IP. So there is that separation of, the IT managers wanting to control or say you're putting what over the network, right? So, we have to explain that we came from an IT background. I mean, Netgear's been around for a long time and we've started in IT, but now this AV over IP stuff in the last 10 years, we've become very good at it. But there is still that verbiage of AV that doesn't make sense to the IT people and that division. And, you're going to flood the network with AV over our IT network. So separating is always important. But the trends, we see, really everywhere. And like you mentioned, at the college level, even in sports production, we saw a lot. We sell to the colleges for remote learning and contribution and research, but we also sell to the sports machine in each university that does either coach video and archiving to analytics to broadcasting from college football level all the way down to, say, gymnastics or volleyball and more becoming produced and shown over digital networks and in linear broadcasts. So to me, a lot of these things are merging to a large degree. Really, it's just AV over the network and managing it effectively. So, we see it happening everywhere. And digital signage and big LED walls for information and entertainment. And even at high school level, I've seen a lot of projects come through at the high school level. The challenge is, like you said, a lot of these contributors or people, say placing a camera or moving around mics, they're volunteers and they may be here today, but they're not going to be here tomorrow or next year, for instance. And that's a whole retraining character. And same with house of worship and church production. These are volunteers, and these guys may have other jobs and do most of the time, right?
Yeah,
so
most of the time, yeah.
So they have to learn and relearn, and it's a challenge for these AV managers in these installations.
So I will give you a couple of different things. First, to answer Caldera's question directly, I agree with him where he's seeing 8K, right? You're doing it at the higher end. You're doing it medical where you need detail. I said this 6 years ago when 4K started coming down the pipeline. You show me the content, and then you can then we'll start getting excited, right? That's just the bottom line, right? I'm dude, give me a 16K display. I don't care. That'd be fantastic, right? The more Ks, the better. But you got to have a use case, and that is driven by the content. And until, we still shoot in 1080 because our final video product goes on YouTube. Not that YouTube doesn't have a 4K, but you're looking at the cost benefit analysis there. It's not valuable enough. It doesn't make sense for us, AVNation, to create content in 4K.
Also, I think we're missing. Capturing in 8K and 4K it's less cameras, so you're producing digitally within an 8K image, right? So that's something to think about. Cost savings may be one camera as opposed to several at different locations, right? So taking a very wide shot of an 8K, whatever is happening, in front of the camera, and post-producing it and taking little snippets of
there are cameras doing that now. I mean, I always default to the Panicast on that, and I don't mean to, but that is one that comes to the top of my head because they're shooting in higher resolutions and just what Todd's talking about. They'll cut up, right, and then give you a 1080 version of the section.
But it's going to have to be that specialty thing for 8K, for even from the content perspective, because when it comes down to it, forget the boardroom, forget that stuff. But I'm just talking about like on a production side, like you guys were mentioning. This device right here, this is what we're viewing it on.
He's showing a phone.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody can't see it. This cell phone right here, this is what I'm viewing it on. And this is not a Pro Max iPhone. This is a standard iPhone. So
his kids have the Pro Max.
They do, actually.
When we have clients who have somebody who's super excited about, we need 4K. I'm like, yeah, you don't though, because what you're capturing is ending up on student phones.
Yep.
So let's save that money and go somewhere else with it.
You're not going to do Excel sheets on a conference room display that's 4K. It's just not going to happen.
Good Lord, I hope not.
Right. But I get clients saying, I want 4K, and I have to sit here and spend the next 15 minutes explaining to them why they don't want 4K for that use case, right? So
that'll do us all. Thank you so much. Mr. Caldera, how do people connect with you or Pearl Technologies?
pearltechnology.com. That's with a Y. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jeremy Caldera. I am no longer on the X. I think I have an account, but I don't know what I did with it. So I have dialed back the socials, but the Facebook and LinkedIn I still got. So.
And how do people listen to your fantastic podcast?
Oh, my podcast. Yes. So we are at the end of season 1 right now. We're doing it in seasons, but you were a guest on it, and it's called the VC Project. It's myself and Mr. Pat Venditti from Pearl. He's a former Major League pitcher, and we do a podcast together. You can find it on Spotify.
Bren, as always, ma'am, fantastic to see you. How do people connect with you or Kierkegaard?
LinkedIn for me, Brenda J. Walker, Kierkegaard.com, and you can get me Bren at Kierkegaard.com. Right. And I'm not the socials. I mean, I gave them up years ago. So just if you do connect with me on LinkedIn and it takes a minute, do not be dismayed. I will come back. Once a month, I look at it.
Once a month. Or you can find her at Infocom, to be honest about it.
Yes, you can. You can find me at Infocom. And I'm doing 2 different sessions that are AI related to design.
Very cool.
So, yeah.
All right. Todd, thank you so much, sir. How do people connect with you or Netgear?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Todd Musgrave, 1D, Todd Musgrave. And on our website is netgear.com/AV. And that's the division that I work within. If you ever have any technical questions or need a reference for the right switch for a project, our Pro AV design at netgear.com is a very useful resource as well.
Very cool. Thank you so much. For me, for Tim Albright, don't follow me on anything because at this point I'm not going to say I'm bemoaning the Bears NFL draft, but just say I'm a Bears fan. I'll just leave it at that.
But you're going to get a roof soon.
I know. Go by the website, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others. A brand new ed tech is coming down the pipeline, State of Control and Women in AV. And if you don't think that you have enough of hearing me talk generically in general, our buddy Ryan Gray from the AVIT Amplifier on HETMA works for Yavapai College out in Arizona. He has a podcast called the AVIT Amplifier. He had me on twice, Caldera. Twice. See? Right. And the second one dropped this
Season
week.
2, you'll be on again.
Yeah. You can go check that out as well. All that and more at avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That's all the time we have for AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.